So you go to a business get-together and you sit down with a number of people, and the whole scene, the workshop, let's say the community experience that you're with, the facilitator comes out and says, write down all of your thoughts about money. Write down all of your attitudes and thoughts and beliefs about money. And so you write down all your beliefs about money. And then they say, well, what were you taught about money when you were growing up? What kind of scripting did your parents leave you with about money? What are your memories about money? So you have these sort of tattooed views, these inner enemies that are lurking, these belief systems that are lurking, that your cognition is undermining and ambushing you. And you have all of these residues, and you have big baggage about money, and that, money is the issue, and therefore you should do something about it. And something is wrong with you because you have these beliefs about money, that money doesn't grow on trees. Oh boy, you better be alert on that one. Or people who make money are uncaring people, so you better worry about that one. Or you have beliefs about if you run out, you will be a unworthy person. And so, or if you don't have material things, you will be disapproved and you won't be a worthy person. So here's the point, is that we are a product of our own development, of course. We have historic views, and we have memories, and we have belief systems. We all have models. We have models about who we think we are. We have models about what things are. We have models about the world. We have generalizations. We have assumptions. We are systems. We have conflicting ideas, conflicting thoughts. We have conflicting concepts. We have one goal, and it doesn't match up to another. We are very interesting beings because we're very complicated. And that's our nature. We have a brain, and the fundamental mechanism of the brain is to reuse the information that we already know. So tonight, you're going to go to sleep. You've collected all this information, including the information you're hearing from me right now, from my voice. And then tonight, when you go to sleep, your brain or some bouncer in your brain says, we need this, we don't need that, we need this, we don't need that, yep, we need this, maybe we'll keep this, yeah, maybe we better keep that one if something dangerous comes up. But then you just take the garbage out. Because the way your brain is made is you don't have the space for it all. Therefore, you need to convert things into the database. And so like we have a gigabyte or a megabyte, we have something called a concept. And our concepts are thoughts that are stored for reusage, so that when we come upon a moment, we don't have to wonder what's really true or take on the inconvenience of gathering all the information to be accurate in our perceptions, but rather we make abstractions, we make assumptions, we make generalizations, so that we can essentially be efficient, is not have to put all the effort of having an original observation. Because to us, naturally, to a nervous system, that takes a lot of effort, is to imagine or to essentially not imagine what it is that we're seeing and actually collect the right information. And so a lot of the things that we are going through in life, the moments, the situations, we are downloading from this past. We're unaware. Yes, we have beliefs. Yes, we have assumptions. Yes, we have those things. But the only enemy is when we forget them. Someone said in the 1900s that because we have these models in our mind, mental constructs, that those are the self-limiting factors that we're going to need to look at, address, clear, vaporize, all that stuff. Because if we do, the proposal is we will be happy. The proposal is we'll lead better quality lives. And a lot of human beings during the mid-1900s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to the millennium, bought into that notion. And we saw all the workshop organizations come up, and seminars, and EST, and Landmark, and LifeSpring, and Summit Organization, and PSI seminars, and this and that, and all that. And then it got integrated into multi-level marketing, and then it got into sales, and all this cognitive development became obsessive. That what you think is what you have. You make your own reality out of what you think. So there must be no more room for reality, possibilities, because you're not thinking it. So here's my point. Look, I'm not trying to be cynical and say that I disrespect the work. I just don't think we need to do so much of it. Because in my experience, and I think I can say this very validly, having coached 27,000 hours, that there really are some very interesting assumptions about our assumptions. Is that some authorities out there claim that unless we wipe the dirt off the window, in other words, unless we reprogram the belief, we get the subliminal tapes, we hypnotize ourselves to plant positive thoughts, we have to do something better about our thinking because our thinking is an enemy. And so because we've assigned negative thinking a bad place, doubt, self-esteem, opinions about ourselves, unwanted beliefs about us, unwanted beliefs about others, misinterpretations of reality, we've given it such a bad name, we put ego in such a bad way that we do our best to invest, to try to get rid of the problems, because they're problems. Now we need to solve them. So we have these inner enemies, and the inner enemies have to be solved. In fact, we have to do this to qualify ourselves for things we want. One of the most popular ones is that I deserve or don't deserve what I desire. So if I'm not getting what I desire, it's because I'm not deserving it. In other words, I'm not enough, and I need to write a love note to myself to really believe I'm enough. That if I think I'm worthy of it, I will attract it. Because, if I'm not worthy enough, I have beliefs that I'm not worth it, I won't bring it into my life. But if you look at the bios of most creators, famous people, people that we know in the arts, people that we know in all walks of life who've created and aspired what matters to them and has created it, they didn't really have that level of operating to it. They're not trying to look inward. They're not focused really on any beliefs they have. They're not in the belief business. That's not what they do. They don't have some upper hand where they have this cognition control and they have a whole different script about it, and they're making money because they don't have bad thoughts about money. Is that just sort of, are we missing that? Where did that get missed? That, not everyone is doomed and gloomed because they have these underlying beliefs and structures. That would mean that we have to go fix ourselves and fix our quirks and have all these investigatory, introspective kind of processes to make sure that we've cleaned our slate and that we have, really good beliefs, and good beliefs will favor us, and good expectations, and optimism, and positive thinking, and all that. Like I said, I'm not a cynic, but I'm also not a fan. And this is why self-help deserves some scrutiny. Because we have let self-help get so out of hand where we've led people to believe that if they don't deal with these beliefs, they're screwed. And I have plenty of clients that still have all the beliefs. I have plenty of great creators in my coaching stable where they have created magnificent desires, dreams, creations, businesses, relationships, you name it, whatever the subject matter is. And it wasn't about looking inward. And it wasn't about that. It was about being very skillful. It was about a process. It was about creating. It was about focusing on creations, not themselves. Because when you focus on fixing you, on what's wrong with you, you become a lousy creator. Because you're so making up what's wrong with you, it's like your identity is married to whatever shows up. So when things are going your way, you're a better person. When you have the things materializing that you want, it must be because your relationship with yourself is better. It must be because the terrain of your beliefs have suddenly gone better. The broadcast between your ears has suddenly gone great. Bullshit. No. That's hype. That is hype. It's not that we have a model or two or three or beliefs or assumptions. We all have them. Right? We can't separate this from that and say, well, this person has it, well, that person. Look, we all have a past, right? We all have experiences. Some went well. Some hurt really bad. Some were betrayal. Others went really favorable. So as we go through time, we accumulate. So that's a wake behind the boat we will never be able to cut. The past is incomplete. And when we get that it is, we get that it is complete. It's not a completable thing. It's history. I have to remind myself, I'm pinching myself to remember this, because I don't have to operate out of it. I'm not more powerful than it. It's not about that. But most of the belief systems that are out there, we forget we have them. And that's the issue, is that we're unaware that we have them. And so since we're unaware that we have them, we go automatic on them. And then when we do, they trump us, and they do have some impact, and they hold us back. And, we think there's something coming around the corner. We have these fears, and they come from early on, and we're afraid, and so we back down our courage, and so we act to avoid those things. Or someone might not approve me, I might not belong, therefore I should. Or I might be humiliated, therefore I should. So our shame systems are strong, our fear systems are strong. About 95% of the belief systems we do have are in the area of worthiness and power, and whether we think we have the power or not. And so if we construed ourselves not to have power to create what we want, so we try to create it, and without looking or without noticing we have a belief in use, what plays out? The impact. We favor more the belief that we don't have the power rather than creating as a fundamental force what we want. Is that a structure? Is that a structure that gives rise to behavior? Yes. But here's the thing. What to change? Where to change? If I build my self-esteem, will I create more of what I want? Well, I might change my self-esteem, but still not create what I want. Are we doing demolition? Are we doing architecture? Are we tearing something down? Are we fixing something? Is this problem solving? Or is this creating? What is it? Am I trying to create a self? Why am I trying to be somebody? Because I don't think I am a somebody. Who but a person that would need to affirm how great they are is someone who isn't? Who but a person that would need to stand in front of a mirror and affirm that they're wealthy and rich is someone who's poor? Who but a person that needs to chant to themselves how smart they are and clever they are and charismatic they are is someone who's stupid and not that? I guess the self-help thinkers didn't really look at those systematic effects. That the more we attempt to be what we think we should in our ideals, because these in our eyes conflict with our unwanted beliefs, the more we contradict ourselves by begetting the beliefs in the first place. It's like running in place or treading water. The more we try to change ourselves or appear different by helping people perceive us differently than we really are, it's just our little way of hiding in the dark. Don't see me. I don't love me. I'm not enough. Oh boy, so I need to be enough. I need to love myself. I can't come by my traits honestly with discernment. I need to change my relationship with myself to deserve love. Have you ever had that notion? Have you ever seen anybody go off the charts with that? Right? Look what they're doing. Who but a person that needs to be a lovable person is not? There are a lot of qualities about you that you will never love. Love can't be manufactured. So what if you admit to yourself there are some things about you that you don't like? And quit attaching those things to what you want. Desire for desire is desire. If I want to create a poem, that's a poem. I love it for the sake of the poem. Create the poem. Right? If I desire to write a book, I want to write the book for the sake of the book. The book matters, therefore I create it. If I make music, I'm writing music, creating music, building music because I love the music before I bring it into being. Whether I'm on the right day, whether I'm in the right mood, whether I have a high opinion of myself, low opinion of myself, whether I think I can, whether I think I can't, irrelevant. I can have all that, but it's not relevant to creating what I'm talking about. such an aha because we've gotten so much of a fetish in the American way, especially in our country, because of our fetish for competitiveness, individuation, competition, all that we're so obsessed with perfectionism. We strive for excellence. Because in a way, we've attached our identity that excellence means that I'm a better person. So that would mean when I fail, I'm not a good person. And what this does is it causes all sorts of compensating strategies, things that we have come up with. Number one, positive thinking. That someone taught us in the New Age movement that we've been indoctrinated into that positive thinking affects positive change. Do we want relationships with people that are negative? Well, there may be reasons why they are, or maybe they are just the way they are, but I know a lot of great negative people that have created very, very good loving relationships. They're out there because they're very skillful. But they just take a more negative, pessimistic approach. Style, personality. And I think we're a very lazy species. We have all sorts of moods. But you tell a mother who's raising 3 kids, a single mother, to have a positive attitude, she should punch you in the eye. You tell someone building a really difficult career that's building skill in the direction they want to be in, let's say the arts, building a singing career or building a dance career or, building an advertising executive career, which you're full of big frustration, setup, things you have to do, things you have to learn, you have to be skillful. You will learn in stages. Or maybe a great sales boarding athlete, right? You have to learn how to sail, get back up again. You're getting thrashed in the waves. There are moments when we have a difficulty in the process. When we learned how to ride a bike, we fell down. We had to pedal fast enough to get our balance on the bike. But we don't like discomfort. And so we design an amelioration of those things. We say, I don't want that. I want to pathologize pain and frustration. I don't want to stay with current reality. I want to get rid of it. I want to stay away from it. Oh, don't make me do it. Don't make me have that. I want to find the easy way. Give me the quick fix. Give me the short-term resolve. Give me the right answer soon. I want the right answer. I don't want to learn. I don't want to improvise. And what we miss out on is all the glory and the fun of creating, of learning by creating something we care about. That's really the best way to learn. But it takes practice. It takes training in creating anything. Creating a career, creating a golf game, creating a piano competency, creating a book, creating a pottery piece, creating a relationship. That no matter where we are, what we do, that creating is a matter of starting with something we want to bring to life that doesn't exist yet. It's a process. But no, wait a minute, JD. I have to figure out who I am. I got to have a purpose. I need to create a purpose because I need to get my calling. I don't want to make a move. I don't want to determine what my steps are unless I know why I'm here. Do dogs ask about this to themselves? We're the only species on the planet that's preoccupied with who we are. We're trying to figure out all these existential questions while we put all these this creative action on hold. So I better figure all this stuff out. I got to figure out all the existential questions first. And it's really just a disguise of our fear, is that we don't like uncertainty, and so we trade out the learning process for predicting the future. So rather than create one, we actually predict one, and then we become weathermen. We try to predict things. So we use our motivation to go learn, get skills, to prevent mistakes. So I had a guy once say, hey to me, I'm going to create a restaurant. Should I go to school? I got to go to school and learn how to be a proficient restaurateur before I create one. And I said, why don't you start creating a restaurant? He said, well, I don't know how. And I said, why don't you start creating a restaurant? Creating is learning. We will never be prepared enough for the creations we want. And the reason why is every creation is a personal school. Did you know how to be a parent when you made your children? Did you say, I'm going to go to parent school and I'm going to prepare for every possible thing so that I have a discipline in that I will be ready for those breakdowns, those nuances? No. But you had a learning mentality. You made all sorts of mistakes. You put the bottle in the wrong way. You didn't feed right. You didn't learn how to be a mommy before you parented. Parenting brought you into being the mommy you are. That's because action equals clarity. See, mommy isn't a ready, aim, fire model. Mommy was a ready, fire, aim model. And you were willing to do it because of the love you had for your child. That the desired state that you wanted for the child to come to life overrode any discomfort. You were barfing in the toilet. You had incredible problems, pain. It slowed you down. You went through a ton of suffering. I will never know because I'm a male, and it would be arrogant to think I do know. But to point out the point is that you are a natural creator. You don't know what you know. If you're a parent, it's one of the greatest examples of using the creative process. Now, did you think your opinion of yourself as a mother and whether you could be a mother had to do with your mothering and the skillful means of becoming a mother? You get my point? You think your belief systems about what you thought, about what mothering was, or your expectations? I mean, sure, those may have been important comparisons to learn from reality as you went along. But what was most important was what you wanted, what mattered, your values and aspirations, your longings to have the child. And that got you to surface what current reality was teaching you. It became an ally. You got it wrong, you got it right, you got it wrong, you got it right. But you couldn't really identify with your value as a mother, although you probably could say at certain points you were in developmental stages. I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, I'm getting this. But there was tension between where you were in relationship to where you wanted to go. So you did this. You know what this is. And in doing so, here you are. And I hope that you are enjoying the process of parenting still. And maybe you're raising a teenager. And oh boy, isn't that something? One of the most difficult jobs in the world. But you continue to create based on the kind of person you want them to be in the world, or the kind of love you have for their possibilities, or just direct love for their gifts and things that you want to help the world see in them. Whatever it is, you might think about that, is that if 10 years from now your little kiddo was having a conversation about you and your time with them at this point in their life, what would you want them to say? That might make you a little emotional. Would you want them to say, Mommy wasn't around? She didn't care? She didn't listen? Or, she was present. We had activities together. Just imagine that. That's a desire. That's something you can envision, imagine, and then you can put that as the rudder in the water for guiding all your decisions today. What is that? Creating. You can look at your work the same way. What's the desired state at work? Where are you currently now? What are your skill sets? What is there still to learn? How good are you at things? How not good are you at things? What's the kind of team you have? Describing where you are in relationship to that. The point is this, is that your identity is not in this. It's not like you need to put it away. We're not trying to fix that your identity is, you have to force it out. It's just not included. It's not relevant. It's just not. And so you're going to have moments when you're not satisfied. How many times as a parent did you go through moments when it was terribly unsatisfying? Did you only create and do great parenting on your best days? Of course not. The show must go on, as they say in Hollywood. You did what you did because it was iterative. It was consistent. You knew you had to show up. There was discipline in it because you made choices. You had to make whatever you were doing was on behalf of whatever the baby needed. That's where the power came from, not you. Whether you thought you could be the mother or whether you had the power to be the mother, that wasn't really an issue. That sat in the bleachers. Whether you thought highly of yourself, whether you had clarity around what to do, you didn't. A lot of it was very trial and error, very ambiguous, very precarious. There was a lot of fragility. Things could go wrong all of a sudden. But you had to treat those two sides of the equation with equal value. When things did well, you used it. When things didn't go well, you used it. You had all that learning going on. You learned how to parent. It's one of the closest ways I can enlighten you on creating. Not believing, not working with your stuff, your self-esteem, your trust issues, and all that. So does that mean we just put it all away and just say, well, all this cognition stuff, my issues, my habitual perceptions, my judgment, my cynicism, my fears, my shame, all that. Where do I go, JD? Do I put that somewhere? Do I just lock it up in a vault and just say, you're not coming with me on the tour? No, you befriend it. They're roommates. You're always going to have that there. It's just whether you want to take interest in it. It's not very interested in you anyway. So it's learning how to learn. And as you do that, you realize that you're separate from your thoughts. You're separate from your emotions. You're separate from your concepts. You're separate from your assumptions. You're not identified with them. You're not of them. You observe them. You don't absorb them. But you develop a layer of awareness, what we call a keen awareness, where you're able to step back like in third person and say, it's over there. It's this. It's like this. There's distance. And that gives you perspective. So you don't have to aggress on it, or you don't have to irritate yourself with it, or hide from it, or do anything with it. But you can occupy your attention, your intention from something bigger to attend to. Do the issues go away? You might outgrow them. You might change over time. You're going to change your script. Narrative's going to change. But it's important that you stay fluent to it and just describe it to yourself. But let's be clear. If you want to work on that stuff, work on it. Make it a hobby. Because self-improvement is for the birds. You're not a project. You don't need to be one for you or anyone else. If you want to give life to your shit, be my guest. That's a choice. If you want to give life to what matters to you and bring great creations into the world, make that a way of life. How about that as your life-building process? Building the architecture around dreams and aspirations and longings. You can separate deserve from desire. It doesn't increase your probability of success. I know plenty of people that didn't think they deserved money, and they got really good at what they did, and they became so valuable in the trade that they were in that they made more money than their doubts would have ever admitted. And they don't even need to transcend their doubts, because doubts are something that you naturally have built into you because you care a lot about your well-being. Be grateful that you do care about you enough to have the darn doubt. Fear isn't not being afraid. Fearlessness is not being afraid. Better said, yeah. Fearlessness means that you are so articulate and you are in tune with your fear that you're in tune with your fear. You're admitting it to yourself. You're in tune with your doubts. And sometimes fear is a great way to keep your sanity because it makes you alert. It makes you wake up. It's what your nervous system's built in. But you don't have to follow it all the way to the conclusion. I'm trying to avoid something I think's around the corner. There's a phantom there. Therefore, I should. Just know you have a model. I have a model that says this is what I'm commanding myself to do. But you can reflect. How do I know that that's true? It's testable. You can test your assumptions. See, most of your theories mean theater. Theatrics of the mind. Shadowboxing. Oh, but JD, wait a minute. That takes time. Well, sure it does. But do you have all the time to make the mistakes on bad and inaccurate information? You don't want to test your concepts? Because most of what comes out of that concept of fear is control. Control the outcome, control others, control. And that controlling behavior may not be lending itself to what you want. So what do? Do you change your fear? Do you tell yourself accurate information? Do you talk yourself out of it? Do you tell yourself what's there? Well, maybe sometimes. If it's relevant to what you want to create, perhaps. Is there a way to build yourself up, increase your power, right? Get your will up, dare yourself, be strong, valor, build the warriorship. That'll last about a day. And if you need to try to build yourself up, who but a person that would need to act like that is someone who isn't? But John, what about my subconscious mind? This thing's a creep. It's just got me in its grasp. It's like a haunt. It just has this quality that just sidetracks me. It's got self-sabotage and so forth. You know why? Because you don't tell it the truth. What the subconscious mind wants is to tell what's going on, to be honest about what's going on, report in, state the facts. That way it can be resourceful. But if you lie to it all the time, trying to fool it, it knows what you're doing. It doesn't have any respect for you. It doesn't want to help. Because you're giving it misinformation. Positive thinking is positive lying. It doesn't give us a baseline to start from. We use positive thinking because we're trying to cover over sometimes what's harsh to admit. We might have to get real about what's really true. And that's okay, because we don't have to do that. That doesn't mean we have to do something with it or dispense of it or add any meaning to it, but rather report it to ourselves. We teach ourselves reality. That is a capacity. And it makes us more resourceful and responsive too, because there's energy that gives us. When we know where we are, we somehow get the truth setting us free into new actions, new responses. Not because we're removing a problem, but because we're moving from here to there. So in order to have that starting point, I got to know where I want to go. If I want to create a fire tonight when we're camping in Yosemite, I make up my mind, do I desire to create a fire? And I envision the campfire talk and all the great times. And great, I start with a desire. And then I look at my relationship to that fire, and what I just get is I don't have matches. And I don't know how to make a fire. I've never made one from flint. And I've never made one. I was never a scout. Those are true statements. And so I don't have anybody in my group that knows how to make one either. That's true. That's not negative thinking. That's a beginning. Now I know whether to find matches. Now I know where to learn. Now I get my actions going. That energizes me to take an action. Not like I'm out. Not like I'm putting obstacles in my way. Rather, I'm making a path. I have to translate where I am into the best course of action. So I do. And I began learning how to build a fire, and I build one, and it goes to a kindling stage. And the night arises, and not everything goes as I expected or perhaps desired, but I still desired it for the sake of having a direction. But what played out were beautiful stories and reflections and fun and laughter and engagement. So I built a universe around the fire because I desired it, and I started from where I am, and then in the aftermath, I'm living in that universe of all the neat things that were experienced and nuances and things. But JD, what about going with the flow? What about the now? What about all that? How do I work with this notion of the now? All right? It's so talked about today to just let go and just quit all the doing and the stress and just sort of live with the universe delivering itself into me in the natural way and getting out of that way and just sort of letting the effortlessness come in. And doesn't that just sound great? Like, it's such a great recipe to hide our laziness, It's just to be in the now and just have that ever-present now. So let's have a look at that. How do we look at the now? Because there's this sense of being in the now, but there's something missing because we're just ever-present now, we're ever-present now, and yet we don't have a sense of the future, and when we're involved in creating the future, it's when we're at our most happy points. And so we have to hold both. We have one eye on the now and one eye on the future. And the eye on the future is not on controlling it, on what it has to be, rather. It's focusing on what matters to us and bringing it into being because it doesn't exist yet. That's the future. It's a pre-existing virtual reality that matters that we choose to bring or don't because we desire or don't, and we decide or don't decide. We have range. And then we can start instantly. We don't have to get terrible clarity to start. But we can focus on outcomes. Not because we have to have them or we'll be let down. I love when I hear, well, don't desire anything. It causes suffering. But the orientation to suffering is pain. We all have suffering. It's okay to admit it. And when we're in it, it's okay to articulate it. In fact, we have to separate ourselves somewhat from it. Not disassociate. But in order for us to have a relationship with those nuances, we have to step back, be able to see them objectively, and then be able to learn from those emotions and experience them. So that we're not pushing them out, but rather we're convening them. And I often hear, well, if I'm in this moment, anything is possible. Nothing is impossible. I mean, do we really have to go there? Do we? Because if you thought that the key to success was to think nothing is impossible, you try to impose that idea on yourself. And to do that, you've got to ignore reality just as it is. You'll be disappointed when things don't work out. You might think you didn't have the right attitude, faith, courage. But instead of learning how to do better next time, you'll try to increase the intensity of your belief. But when you're creating, what you believe makes no difference at all. So what you do, what you learn, what you experience over time, what you master, how well you create, does matter. And you don't need slogans to hide the truth of the universe that we live in which some things are impossible and we are enriched by the magic of that fact. You need to know where you are in relationship to what you want. And impossibilities are part of the world. Sometimes we know that, and sometimes we don't know. And that's a simple fact. But some things seem impossible, but as it turns out, they are possible. And sometimes we don't know. So to proclaim everything is possible is folly. But when it's asserted, it comes from the idea of having a positive attitude. And that by holding that belief, you'll do better. And that the subconscious mind will attract and manifest what you want. And that's the old thought is creative stuff. Think and Grow Rich, Law of Attraction, the Power of Positive Thinking, and all the latest variations of this chestnut of an idea. But what the impossibilities really do is they lead to a hierarchy of choices. Because it's impossible to be in two places at once, and one may have to choose which place to be. So what if your son is the starting pitcher for the high school baseball team, and your daughter is playing the lead role in the elementary school play? And what if they were happening at the very same time? There are limited choices available because of the impossibilities. You could watch your son play, or you could watch your daughter perform, or you could miss them both. But you can't see them both because it is impossible in your physical world to be in two places at the same time. So you might think, hey, nowadays we can Skype. But that's not being in two places at the same time. It's being in one place and electronically viewing another. So the point is that you convey reality to yourself. And this isn't about being a realist. It's none of that. There's nothing to be. It's just when you're creating anything, you disclose reality to yourself. And that's a very, very healthy thing. And the spirit in creating is not in being practical or reasonable because that's based on the past. The spirit is under the things that we do desire. We desire these things. And if you don't know what you desire, then you aren't being true to yourself because we do have desires. We're natural builders, creators. We've created civilizations, right? Just look at the past. If you look at what's come into your life, you have desired these things either instinctively or consciously. Therefore, you made decisions to create them. So the spirit of creating is love. Now, are there seasons where things aren't happening? Yes. Are there moments of despair? Yes. Are there in-betweens where we have to stop and go? Yes. Creators learn that that's all part of the process. That's called assimilation. So are there moments when it seems like nothing is happening? Absolutely. We make space for those because there's something being internalized, something learned, something profoundly taking more time. Sometimes we learn how to learn when we're in the creative process because we're having to learn how long a creation will take. Our predictions are not actually true. I thought it would take me 6 months to write a book recently. It took me 3 years. I learned how to create within those 3 years as the creation required it. So learning and creating. This is so key. Now, as you create and you begin to bring creations you want, some will last, some won't. What mattered once before didn't really matter now. You will change and you will change your mind. And so there's no rules about what should matter. So you can conceive of things that you want by considering how much they matter to you. But at the same time, you'll be discovering more of that as time flows, as things go along. You will say goodbye to things that didn't matter before or did and so forth, because these things will change. And you will change because as you're moving through your experiences and integrating them, so too do you assign meaning differently to things. You're being changed. It's about listening. And as you're listening for new things that are emerging. There's new qualities that speak to you out of those experiences. And then those are loaded up into what you consider to matter. So what do you want to invest your life spirit into? I ask you that. Don't compromise. Just because things get tough when you're creating doesn't mean that you organize out of the standard of difficulty. You create because you create the things that matter to you. If they require more skill sets to meet the difficulty, so too they do, because you're focused on the creation, not the level of difficulty. Oh, but JD, this is so conflicting. What's going on in my reality, you don't understand. No, I don't want this pain. What do I do with these occurrences? I have to react. I have to respond. I need to do something about these horrors in my life. I have terrifying things that popped in. Of course you do. But you don't have to foster the orientation of the circumstances. It doesn't mean you're above those things. It just means you're going to take your cues from your choices, not your circumstances. That's dependent on you, your fundamental orientation. If you want to make moment-to-moment changes and learn and use current reality as an ally, then you must change your orientation to the creative. Your life is organized around bringing desired creations into life, not standing in your circumstances and being governed by them. Because those that do that, they have a really insatiable need to change their attitude. And then you correct your attitude, you clean up your attitude, you think better, you have your can-do thinking, you have your optimism back, you have your wits about you. And then, of course, the assumption is things will get better. You're just trying to feel better. Because reality is an acquired taste. So it's not about fulfillment and satisfaction. Bringing a lot of things into being is suffering. When I wrote that book, I had a lot more bad days than good days, but boy, did those help the good days. But my creating went on. At times I wasn't very creative, but I created. And at times I didn't create and I was very creative. They're not the same thing. But I found that I don't need to be creative to create. That should take a weight off your back. You might say, I'm not a creative person. Okay. There's nothing that says that you need to be a creative person to create. Well, there you go. So how do you begin creating? You start daily. You start creating small creations. So tonight, what if you create a meal? Create a pie. Create a letter. Create a poem. Create a work of art. Create a bouquet out of your garden. Create a new space in your home. Create. Create. And as you do, you'll establish your current reality of where you are in contrast to what you want. You'll get a starting point, and then you'll translate that into action. And every time you do it, you're going to get a little better at you doing that. You become more self-reliant. And yes, there'll be nuances. There'll be improv. There'll be moments where you will not be in the same. You'll be in the discontinuity of the moment. Things will happen to you. Life is a wild card. Things come towards you. And then you become fluent in them. And you organize from them. And you integrate them. But they are not the most dominant force out of which you're taking your cues. It's your creations. Don't lower your standards. Don't compromise. Do you need to believe in yourself? No. How can you believe in yourself when you haven't created things that don't exist yet? There's no basis for it. There's no learning. There's no honesty with yourself about what you acquired or where you got better or where you didn't or what you were able to be changed by. You will be changed in the process of creating anything because you've had to acquire new skills. You've had to learn how to create it. You start separate from what you know. But to think your prerequisite is to believe in yourself, you're just hiding from your fears and thinking that they're unnatural. They're totally natural. And you have some concerns about your value. Great. Leave those alone. Come by them honestly. I have some concerns about my value. I think I am an inadequate person. Good. Join the crowd. I have a lot of qualities that I don't like, but I'm not going to fix them in response. They don't disqualify me. And those things don't disqualify you either. It doesn't mean that's glib or that you're over the top of them. It doesn't mean that you're just irreverent to your quirks, but only change those that are relevant to what you're wanting to create. Right? I mean, we're not in the business of problem solving. If you assume that because you don't believe in you as a problem to be solved, then you're going to be MacGyver trying to figure out what you believe in. And how are you going to convince yourself in hocus pocus Jedi mind tricks that you're going to believe in something? Why don't you just admit that getting courage starts with how honest you are about where you are? Courage doesn't come from you. It comes from the meaning the creation has. Go back to being a parent. Courage as parents doesn't come from your parenting internal courage. It comes from the care you have for the child. Power comes from the creation, not you. Picasso always said, power is in the painting, not the painter. It matters to the painter, therefore he creates it. You act in an instant. Oh, no, JD, but wait a minute, I got to prepare for it. In order to create my business, I need to print my business cards. I need to be ready. I need to get everything perfect. Before I roll out my website, I need to get everything perfect. Tell that to Bill Gates when he created Windows. He decided to create a software. Therefore, he got into action. He put the software out there. He got feedback. Current reality. Most of it was not good. A lot of bugs. But again, they were objective about it, and they used the feedback to get it better and better and better and better and bring the current reality into the desired state. They innovated Windows, and they brought it into what it is and where it can be, and it continues to innovate and grow and become better, faster, stronger because of this creative process. Had it been about perfection, it would have never gotten into the timing windows to get the feedback. We need information. It's what we do with that information. It serves us in whatever shape or size it's in. It needs to be accurate, and if it is, then we can acquire it, and we can, with our resources, we can apply it and figure out the learning on it so we can apply it and bring where we are closer to where we want to be. How do we hold it? We develop a tolerance. I think most of us lack this tolerance. It's something we have to train in. Self-reliance is not something we're used to. Creating is not taught in school. We're taught how to be adequate. We're taught who to be. Someone else has our answers, not us. Maybe it's time for you to self-author your life, is to build creations upon your own answers. And you don't have to justify anything you want to create. Why do creations exist? Because they matter. It's almost so simple, it's hard. We make it up to be so much when we don't need to. Put yourself away. Stop improving yourself. Stop working on you. Stop buying into the notion that you need to correct your quirks and focus on creating. And it can begin now. This can be a crucible of initiation right here in this audio to become the creative force predominantly in your life. And that means to create creations that matter to you and just that. It's not about changing the world or getting it to conform around you. It's not about trying to bring yourself happy. It's not focusing on you and your fulfillment. It's not about you. It's not about trying to be somebody. It's not trying to build up your self-esteem. It's not trying to believe in yourself and get your confidence about you and make aggressive and bold moves. It's not about working on yourself to make a better world. Cut all that out. It's all there. It's all doctrine. It's all that. It's all finding the right answers. It's all marketing. It's all hype. Focus on creating. 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 Now, we coach entrepreneurs in how to apply, master, how to use the creative process in the domains of their life plan and their business. They create great teams and unify them. They create great organizations that are profitable every year, 30% over. They create great relationships with customers and suppliers. They use the creative process there. They create great internal processes. They create great customer engagements and nuances. And they create brilliant things at home. They create their health. They create their personal finance outcomes. They're in a creative orientation. And in that, they are inspired in their life in living their moments as learners. And that they never stop learning. They have a lab mentality because they've chosen to create creations separate from what they know. They're comfortable with their own ignorance. They have to be. Because if they reuse everything they know, then they're repeating, not creating. They're problem solving. They're not creating. So they're natural builders. And the entrepreneurial spirit doesn't mean that you're some wealth tycoon that's trying to start the business and you want and change the world. The entrepreneurial spirit is in everyone because entrepreneurship is built on the notion of helping. And so if you're in the notion that you choose to be a natural value creator for others in whatever domain you can, then you probably have some very creative thoughts that are virtual and they are desired states and conditions that you want to create. So maybe start with a couple of areas. Start in your kitchen. Create foods, create recipes, create experiences. Look around you. Look at the things that matter to you right now. What do you want to create? Naturally, when you start choosing things you want to create, what drops off are things that don't matter to you. So you're not trying to manage everything. You're not trying to build all your priorities. You're just focusing on the dominoes. The dominoes are the areas that are the most important things that you choose to create. And as you do, it naturally creates insulation by de-emphasizing a focus on the things that don't matter. Because simplicity is having that hierarchy of importance. And if you had 3 things in the next 90 days that mattered most and just focused on those, and give yourself license to refuse those things that don't, and naturally you must, because you're going to focus your energies and your skills and your tools and all the resourcefulness you have in the direction of your creations, things get very simple. And so it's not about managing your time, because you don't really need to. You're just building calendars and building action plans and lines of sight to things that matter to you. Now, if you'd like to be coached, if you want to do this yourself, that's great. You can teach yourself the creative process. You can read more about it. There's lots of books about it. Or you can get one-on-one feedback that a book or tape can never give you. You've never seen your own face. So having feedback and having a bit of a push and some accountability and learning the skill sets could probably increase the speed and impact at which you become a great creator. So I'm going to give you our information if you'd like to get coached, get yourself coached. And that is 714-375-6624. You can find us online at highlevelperformance.com. My name is Coach JD. I am the founder and president of High Level Performance, HLP Group. And I have a special coaching process called the VIP Coach. We are a top-notch, one-on-one, private elite coaching program for decision-making executives and entrepreneurs of small to medium-sized companies. And they're trying to unify their teams, really realize their creative freedom to bring the creations they want into the world. And by doing that, they help the world see the opportunity of them. They want to kind of pull it all together from being in the world as a creative citizen, a creator of great creations. They want to be a great creator of aspirations and dreams and ideas that they want to bring into life, to really make that their life-building process and to not hold back and express every creative act that they want and yearn to create. They want to organize their relationships and co-create with relationships to bring the collective creations out. Because as they do, that brings better things out of them and everyone in a creative community. And they want to build great rewards. They want to learn to receive, because as they bring creations into the world, there's tremendous spiritual rewards and spiritual punch and pay. And there's also monetary rewards for bringing value to a marketplace or community. Because creating really isn't self-interested. Most of the time, the texture of creative acts and dynamic urges very much have to do with making a difference in something. And it doesn't have to be. And it doesn't mean using every talent that they have. There are plenty of talents that you have, that I have, that everyone has as gifts. But we don't have to, by the rule book, place ourselves into those talents. That we create creations that we want, and if we can take aim within those gifts, that's even better. But we don't have to. So it's not about monetizing your passion. A really nice, sexy idea that sells a lot of books and markets workshops. It's not about that. You don't need to monetize your passion. You bring creations into the world that you care about out of love. So I hope something in this, in the referencing I'm doing and pointing out the differences between human potential thinking and creating, and pointing out that there are different motivations and structures that are involved in the creative process that have a whole different way of learning and behaving and motivating yourself in a world that gets so exciting when you're in the process of bringing creations in your life into being. You have so much to look forward to. You transcend your hope about things, and you take informed action, and you begin to develop a certain discipline of moving your choice points in the direction of what you want. And I think people are happiest when they do that, and they bring out so many great goodies and things that they can bring to the world. I just hope you do, because we'd love it. And a lot of the things in the creations that you have in your heart really belong to the world. And so I hope you don't hold yourself back, and you realize that there's no decision to make. That creating is just a way of life, and the creative habit is just something that you open your eyes to. So I do have the opportunity, I think, of continuously, always in my own life, looking for ways to create great value for others. And I think my coaching vehicle is one of the best ways for me to translate what matters to me most into someone like you or some friends or a community. And I think if you change the way you think about the world and the way that you occupy your time, you're going to change your community and your organization, and that's going to spread out all over the planet and beyond. And there's nothing greater that I could think about in terms of what matters to me in making that kind of impact and difference. So I invite you on that creative journey, that hopefully it begins now, that you choose to become the predominant creative force in your life, that you do take 100% responsibility for your own security, and that you only expect opportunities by creating value for others in the lanes of what matters really for you, and that you awaken that entrepreneurial spirit to dream again. Do a little makeover on yourself, to write down all those crazy wishes and things on your bucket list again, that by the end of your lifetime, you want to make sure and get to, and then start to make decisions now and start to take action, because you're not immortal. You're not going to live forever. And because that's so, you've got a timeline here to get to the things that you want to create, not because of scarcity, but to put that into perspective. Don't take that for granted. Life is precious. It's so precarious. And you make the most of the time and suck the marrow out of life because you have it. And that's something that death shows us. It shows us how to live. But I think more is it shows us the birth of how we create. And we build marvelous creations. There's nothing greater than the human endeavor to create. We put a man on the moon for this. We've continued to endeavor in our societies and civilizations for this. And we can be part of that by stepping into the creative. Again, my name is JD, and I thank you for this time. And thank you for going all the way with me in this audio and getting to this point. And I hope that something has touched you in your life more than ever.